In retirement, having a pension can change everything. Whether it's choice between living on beans and toast or travelling the world, as most of us would like to do, but according to a new report recently published by Scottish Widows, it's a harsh reality. Nearly 40% of UK adults aren't even on track to afford a basic standard of living when they retire, which is a reality none of us want to face. Retirement should be something to look forward to and enjoy, not something we need to worry about whether we'll have enough money to get through. So let's break down what this daunting statistic actually means and how to avoid this trap to make sure you're not caught short in your retirement. The problem is, for most people, pensions seem boring, or it's something that they should wait until later to do, or it's something they should get around to doing, but they just don't. And 29% of 18 to 25-year-olds have never paid into one, right at the point when their money has the most time to grow. It's a point we all wish we started contributing to one. But even beyond just the younger age group, only 58% of UK adults are actively contributing to a pension. And that gap between those who are and aren't is likely more like the Grand Canyon for the self-employed. While 88% of eligible employees are now auto-enrolled, only 16% of self-employed people are contributing to a pension at all. And according to the report, 51% of self-employed workers are at risk of falling short, and only 1 in 4 are actually on track to have a good standard of living in retirement. And that's a massive red flag. And by the way, if this is already starting to feel a bit overwhelming, I've put together something that might help. It's called the Retire Early Roadmap, and it walks you through how to get your pension sorted step by step, even if you're starting from zero. It's totally free and it's linked in the description down below. Now, the trouble is, what most people I speak to have done is they've either completely overlooked a pension, or they say they will work until they drop, which realistically, most people won't be working in the 70s and 80s, especially those doing manual labor. Or they just presume what will be there and pay them enough is a state pension. But how far would the state pension as it stands today actually get you? To qualify for the new state pension, you need 35 qualifying years of national insurance contributions, and in some circumstances, you may have had these awarded to you or partially contributed to through various schemes, but you'll need 35 in total. Now, this can actually affect your early retirement plans too. For example, if you aim to retire at 55 and you started working at 25, you would need to top up 5 years to meet this criteria. Once you've got those 35 qualifying years, you'll get the full new state pension, which as of today pays a whopping £230.25p per week. That works out to around £11,976 per year. And right now, 2.9 million people are relying on just that, which makes up around 40% of the poorest pensioners in the UK. Now, per month, that would give you an income of around £921. But how far would that really get you if you had that today? If we look at average living costs across the board, well, council tax might cost you around £166 on average, gas and electricity around £152, water comes in at £40, you've got your contents and buildings insurance, which could be around £35, internet can be another £36, TV package £20 to £50, and even a TV license, if you've got one, is £14. Let's say frugal food costs you £200 a month for a single person, and if you're anything like me, you'll be looking at them figures and thinking, well, mine costs more than that. And after all that, you're left with roughly £227. Now, that might seem like breathing room until you realise that money still has to cover your transport, rent or mortgage, clothes, unexpected bills, or even a social life. You can pretty much forget a holiday. It is extremely tight, and that's assuming that everything stays the same. And this isn't some far-off scenario in the future. Pension poverty is already here. According to Age UK and recent retirement reports, nearly 1.9 million pensioners, that's around 16% of over 65s, are living in relative poverty in the UK. That's people who've worked their whole lives now choosing between heating and eating. And most of them didn't plan to end up there. They just didn't plan far enough ahead, or they just didn't realise the importance of building a pension, or they simply just couldn't afford it. This is a reality that we're trying to avoid, because if you don't plan, this is what the default outcome can look like. And the truth is, the sooner you start, the cheaper a pension is. And I want to point out here, it's not people's fault they don't understand this, but a lack of good financial education on the topic. If you were to ask 10 people you knew about their pension, how many of them would be able to give you an accurate idea of if they will have enough? I know most people I talk to really haven't even thought about it, and I'm mid-30s. And yes, the state pension might might rise over time, but so does the cost of literally everything else. Back in 1995, a pint of milk cost just 25p. By 2005, it was 34p, and fast forward to 2015, it reached 45p, and today in 2025, it's around 60p. In a similar way, bread and petrol have seen consistent increases over the decades, as well as many other items. Now, these are really interesting to think about because these dates are 30, 20, and 10 years ago. So imagine how much these prices will increase in 10, 20, or 30 years into the future when you plan to retire. Over the past 30 years, the UK's average inflation has been around 2.8%. So that's how much you could expect the price of things to increase every year. And that's if they stay on track with inflation and don't exceed it, which in recent years certain items have. We would hope that the state pension will increase with inflation, but even if your pension gets a yearly bump, it's still likely running uphill while your bills sprint ahead. So the question is then, well, how much do you actually need? What does a decent retirement actually cost, even before we think about holidays or Netflix? Well, according to the Pension and Lifetime Savings Association, in their most recent update, there are 3 lifestyle levels. For a minimum lifestyle covering the essentials like food, clothing, and a week's UK holiday, you'll need £14,400 per year. A moderate lifestyle includes a car, 1 holiday abroad, and a bit more flexibility, around £31,300 annually. And for a comfortable retirement with 2 holidays, eating out regularly, and no stress when the boiler breaks, you're looking at £43,100. And that's in today's money. Over the past 3 years, those targets have jumped more than 60%. So what you're aiming for now will be more expensive later. And your postcode might actually matter about if you're on track or not. In the east of England, 68% of people are on track. In Scotland, it's 61%. Wales drops down to 56%. And Northern Ireland and the northeast of England is just 52%, which is barely half of the people. So your postcode could shape your pension outcome more than you think. But the main problem, and what will cause the most disparity in retirement, is those who own a home and those who don't. Most recent figures show that approximately 53% of UK adults do own their own home. 28% of those own outright and 25% have a mortgage. Now, shockingly, in the year 2000, 59% of individuals aged 25 to 34 owned their own home. And by 22-23, this figure had dropped to 39%. And as of 2025, individuals under 35 own only 36% of the UK's housing wealth, with $300 billion in mortgage debt across the country. Couple that with the fact we're now taking out longer-length mortgages and now people are buying later, more and more people are falling into the trap of realistically retiring when they're still paying off a mortgage or paying rent. Now that seems like quite an uncommon occurrence now, but it will become the norm. And that's where those retirement living standards numbers will really change. And when that takes a huge chunk of your income before you've even eaten, retirement becomes survival rather than freedom. And this is where we need to address expectations versus the reality. Royal London did a workplace pensions report of 4,000 people. The results found that the average pension saver hopes to retire on an annual income of £48,868, which includes a full state pension, which is currently £11,542. But this is where it gets shocking. If you put that into practice and you took a 22-year-old worker with a starting salary of £24,000 and they were making the minimum 8% pension contributions from the employer and the employee, and presume they got a 2.5% annual pay rise and their investments grew 5% per year after fees, and let's say they leave the workplace at age 67, that would give them a pension pot of approximately £468,000 if they've been paying since day one. Now, including the state pension, this would provide them with an annual retirement income of approximately £36,600. That's £12,200 short of the desired £48,000. Now, I think their desired figure is pretty high and their returns pretty low, but understandable with a workplace pension as the returns don't tend to be as good. And I do think most of us will be pretty happy with £36,000. But it really depends on when you're getting that £36,000, as getting it now is much different from getting it in 20 years' time. So how do you compare and how much do people actually have? Here's the average pension pot by age. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And as you would imagine, the amount people have by age grows as people get older. But if you add in the average investment here for men compared to women, you can see there's quite the discrepancy. The most alarming age groups here were the 20s and 50s, where there's over a 50% gap. But according to the statistics, that starts to balance out in their 60s. There isn't a big surprise as to why. The vast majority will be due to taking time out for kids, working part-time, or maybe earning less, and in some cases just feeling less confident with money, and it all stacks up. This is why so many women end up behind on pensions. But let's throw in to defend there, women actually perform better than men on average for investors because they're more rational and they don't tend to euro the money as much as guys do. But when you think about gender and this gap, this is a consideration to take into account when you reach retirement. Now, if you're in a couple, you have got an edge because 2 state pensions is nearly £24,000. You can balance pots and share withdrawals and optimize tax, but only if you plan together now rather than leaving it till later. Now, in an ideal world, you would want to aim to have equal pensions in retirement, especially if you plan to retire early, so you can maximize the personal and basic tax rate allowances. Some people will end up in a frustrating position where if you want to take more than the basic rate tax for any reason, you could end up facing high rate tax in retirement, which could quite easily be the case when your partner still has their personal allowance available, which is a real shame. If you get this balance right between the two of you, it'll make a massive impact on your ability to enjoy your retirement. You've got multiple options when you get there. You can buy an annuity, which could give you a set amount per year for life, which is a safer route to go down, which some may favor. If you choose to withdraw it yourself, you're in control, but you accept more risk in the market downturns. Now, I would equally say there's a risk to consider with annuities because if you die, certain products can't be passed on to your partner, which you have to look at. The other huge consideration here to consider is care when you get older. Imagine you've got two paths when it comes to care. On the one side, you've got a basic council-funded care home, which is efficient and straightforward, but without the extra comforts. Now, on the other side, there's a private care home that offers cozy environment with more tailored care, there's engaging activities, and a more home-like atmosphere. The private option can run from £1,000 to £2,000 per week, translating to over £50,000 a year, ensuring a higher level of care and comfort. Meanwhile, the council option may come with fewer thrills, but it's a reality many people have to rely on, and it's a place many of us just don't want to end up in. Now, you have to think of this as it's not just some distant "it might happen to someone else" scenario. For many, these decisions aren't made lightly, but are essential to securing peace of mind down the line. Planning now gives you clarity and the options you deserve, so you're not left scrambling when it comes to a necessity. But the main point I want you to take away from this is whether it's care, the level of retirement you want to live, or whether you want a fixed income or a drawdown, or how you want to take your pension, the main thing you want is choice. By planning for it now, you're setting up your retirement pot to give yourself choice in the future. It's really strange to picture, but you 20 or 30 years down the line is relying on you now to look after them. And the harsh truth is that you're the one that's going to make that difference. No one's going to do it for you. The sooner you start thinking about this, even if you feel like it's too late, the better. Very few people are in a perfect scenario and no one gets everything right. So we all have to start somewhere. So what you have to do is make sure you're in the best position possible and not just relying on the state pension, which, God forbid, might not even be there in the future when you need it. So here is what to do next. There's 5 steps which are simple but powerful. Step 1 is to check your pension. Log into your pension provider or use a government pension dashboard. See what you've got, not just a vague number, but the actual total and where it's invested. Don't guess, just get your number. And if you haven't opened a SIP yet, now's the time. And I highly recommend InvestEngine's self-invested personal pension, which I personally use because it has a 0 account fees and it's a user-friendly platform. It's my go-to for long-term investing, and you can choose to manage your investments yourself. With InvestEngine, you can get a welcome bonus of up to £100 when you use my link down below. It's investengine.com/Chris Palmer, or you can use code Chris when you sign up. Next is step 2, which is know your number. Now, you want to use a retirement calculator to figure out how much you'll actually need based on your lifestyle. You want to include your costs and your retirement age. Now, there is one in the roadmap in the link down below. Now, what I would say here is just don't lowball it. Be honest about what you want your future to look like. It's always better to have too much than too little. After that, step 3 is to fill a gap. So once you know your shortfall, and let's be honest, most people have one, figure out how to close it. Now, that could mean increasing your contributions or starting a private pension. You might need to be a little bit smarter with your money and allocate more towards retirement, or even delay your retirement slightly to build more of a buffer. Step 4 is if you're in a couple, you want to talk to your partner. Now, this isn't just retirement on your own, it is a team effort. What you need to do is coordinate your plans and share your numbers and make sure you're pulling in the same direction, because pensions do work better together. And step 5, which I mentioned, which you do want to think about, is plan for care. Now, it's not glamorous and it's not exciting, but it is real and it's very expensive. Now, whether that's home help, assisted living, or full-time care, you might know what problems you may have in the future or just put some allowance for it. As a general rule of thumb, my way of looking at it is I just want to have enough money there, so if something does happen, God God forbid, we can actually cover those costs. Because needing care without the funds for it, that's a position you don't want to be in. And finally, just don't delay. You don't need to be a financial expert, you just need to start. Because the best time to plan your retirement was 10 years ago, and the second best time is definitely today. And remember that £920 per month, that's a ceiling for millions right now. You've still got time to raise yours. Now, if you need some clarity on whether you should be using an ISA or a SIP, I would highly recommend checking out this video before you start investing, or if you want to see what I'm personally doing with my accounts, exactly how much I've got and what I've got invested, you can check that out right here, which I think could help too. Thanks for watching. Let's get your retirement on track, and I'll catch you guys over there.